I've been present for the evidentiary period of the trial of Daniel Perry in the state of Texas and being charged with the murder of Garrett Foster. How do I approach this in a very sensitive way? Let me just say this. The first week, I didn't even know I was sitting next to the families of the deceased. And it really, like the first week, sitting next to the families, being empathetic, understanding their plot in this. I'm very sympathetic towards it, and it messed me up. I'm still kind of sleep deprived. On the night of July 25th, 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a Hyundai car that was, for the majority of the hours before this, Ubering around the city. There was data that was surrendered, or I shouldn't say surrendered, but it came from Uber itself, and there was data on Daniel Perry's phone that was extracted by investigators. And it was found that he was not only Ubering around downtown, but Ubering around a lot of other parts of Austin that night. Additionally, when that night he was texting with the girl, he was very concerned with getting with a girl. I'll just leave it at that. I think he was very preoccupied by that. There was a couple of times in the data of his phone that was collected from the phone's GPS records and stuff like that, he was Ubering around, and then he just kind of either paused or closed out his app. Can't be too sure what happened there, but it seems reasonable that he just closed out his app and he thought maybe he'd been hanging out with this girl. He came up to 4th and Congress, intersection of 4th and Congress. Or is it Congress and 4th? I don't know how you're supposed to enunciate that, but basically he was coming down a street, making a turn, coming down onto a lane that is a turn-only lane. It seems like he was going past a yellow light. And going past the yellow light, he was going at, what is the exact speed? I want to say 9 or 12.9. I forget the exact speed without going through like 40 pages of notes, but it was about half that of the speed limit, which is 25 on 4th Street. 25 miles an hour is the speed limit on 4th Street, according to the prosecution. And came up to it. With some witness statements, depending on the witness, says that he was traveling in a way that it's very dangerous, and I guess it could be argued that, I could see that. Witness, if I were there and saw that car, I would feel kind of scared. But let's go into the people that he almost hit. These people were protesting without a permit. And I understand, I'm sympathetic to protesting against police brutality or police use of force that is unjustified, or any number of things, really. I'm sympathetic to these protests. However, I think it can't be stated enough just how dangerous protesting in one of the busiest streets in Texas, if not one of the busiest streets in the country, how dangerous it is to protest in those streets, impeding traffic without going through the appropriate process. However, over the motivations of the protesters, they did either were able to get a permit, didn't seek to get a permit, but there was no permit that was given. And the protesters protested. Some of them, as could be found by witness testimony, were openly carrying long rifles. Well, so yeah, he came up to the intersection, made a right-hand turn on yellow on a right-hand turn only lane. He navigated that right-hand turn for the majority of that turn. He didn't hit anybody up to... Yeah, he just didn't hit anybody. All the evidence seems to conclude that he didn't hit anybody. Now, there were some thumps heard, and it looked scary, especially being right up next to a car when a car's going roughly half of what 25 miles an hour is. It's going to look scary. He honked his horn, I think trying to get protesters to get out of the way. And a crowd of people came towards the car. I'm sorry, that can't be disputed. A crowd of people came towards the car. So if the car was a threat, the crowd of people came towards the threat. By looking at the evidence, witnesses lied. It's undeniable. There are a couple witnesses that undoubtedly lied, and not only grand jury testimony, but in court as well. Take from that what you will, but it's undisputable. When people uninvolved in the matter come forth and explain what they saw, and then there's the people who are part of the protest that seem to have a stake in the matter, a dog in the fight, and it seems like there's no way what they're saying. Not everything, of course. Okay, I want to say a majority of what they say is true, but there are key details that I think were lies in this case. And to be fair, Daniel Perry was texting with a friend in private communications. This was let in court. Anywhere from, I think it was like 3 months before or something like that, all the way up to like 2 days before. Communications outside of this incident were let in as a sort of like guilty conscience argument from the state. The show, it seems like he was trying to get into a shooting. But this was 2020. We were all on social media talking and going on about stuff and thinking about, if this group does this, what will I do? If this group does this, what will I do? And probably didn't word it in very careful ways. Probably worded it in ways where if I took just parts of that conversation and presented it to people, it would look guilty. And that's what happened. So I don't know if he's going to be found guilty or not guilty. My guess is he's not guilty. My guess is, knowing what he knew at the time, Daniel Perry was driving his car, probably on his phone, maybe even ran a red light, ran a yellow light, made a right-hand turn on a right-hand turn only lane, had to stop, either because he was boxed in or because he heard a thud, because there was a thud heard in multiple videos. And if you're driving, you're going slow, there's a bunch of people around, and you hear a thud, that could mean you hit somebody. What would a reasonable person do, knowing what they knew at the time? And I think the reasonable thing to do is stop and make sure everyone's all right. But in that time of stopping, a large group of people came towards the car. Some people were kicking the car. There's even some accounts, now I don't know if it's true or not, but there are even some accounts of rocking the car. And then an individual named Garrett Faulkner, who had 120 rounds of 7.62 ammunition on him and a Palmetto Arms AK-style long rifle, came towards the car. And the exact stance is in debate. A little bit. It seems like it was like either a crossbody carry or some type of low ready. It's been debated whether he was 16 or 18 inches from the car, from center of mass of Garrett Faulkner's body to the door. Was somewhere between 16 to 18 inches. In trial, they were cutting up seconds. because they could do that. There was video testimony, and a lot of this video testimony was put together. There was LiDAR, laser scans of the scene done to try and reconstruct it and see what happened. They synced up the videos together. A lot of data was collected on how fast the car was going and this and that. And it seems like the car was not going at excessive rate of speed. Made a right-hand turn into what you should have reasonably believed was a roadway. Actually, it is a roadway. And there was people there. And he heard a thud. He did honk his horn. I could see how that's annoying. Don't get me wrong. People honk their horn at me. I hate it. But is it grounds for me to go up to the car, kick it, make a driver believe that he might have hit somebody? The driver stops. And in the time that the driver stops, a large group of people come running towards the car, kicking the car, possibly rocking the car. And then one person with a Palmetto Arms rifle, fully loaded, and 90 rounds in his backpack, 3 fully loaded rounds, and 1 on his gun. Says something to the driver. Exactly what? Can't be too sure. Both sides had seconds to make a decision. I could be empathetic towards the idea that he could have been someone that's trying to run people over. However, this car was driving on a roadway, and what is an open roadway, and these protesters did not have a permit to protest. Oh, and it should be empathized. The APD, and I don't want to blame APD too much for this, because this was a volatile, as someone told me when discussing this. This is a volatile situation, and I think APD higher ups, or it's really hard to make a correct decision on this. What do? You pepperball the crap out of all the protesters that are armed, and that involves a shootout, or you just let them protest. Let them protest. I guess hopefully nothing happens. And unfortunately something did happen. And what happened was, so APD higher ups allowed them to protest. Everyone has a duty to be reasonable on the road. And when you're walking around a very busy roadway with a gun, you impede a driver, make him possibly believe he hits somebody, he stops, you surround his car, and then one person comes up with AK, and the exact degrees of lift or non-lift of the rifle is kind of hard to determine, but it would be reasonable to believe that he was going to get shot, possibly. I would think I was just going to get shot if people are kicking or whatever my car. And I see a guy come up. Exactly what was said, we don't know. It was something to the effect of, get out of the car, or you better not, or depends on the witness. Seems like there's it's traumatic for everyone, and I can understand that. Unless an evidence comes forward that has injuries, the state never came with any witness that said I sustained injuries from impact with the car. All those people, no one was hit. I believe Daniel Perry, knowing what he knew at the time, acted reasonably. It had a valid license to carry. It was a 5-shot revolver, .357, that he used to defend himself. Even if he was guilty and he got off scot-free, I think Daniel Perry's life is forever changed because of this. There are some places he's not going to be able to go without a reasonable fear for his safety now. Sitting in trial, being next to the victims' families, understanding how the victims' families feel, understanding that night Daniel Perry didn't want to kill anybody. I really believe that, to be honest. Um, I think he is a guy who, knowing what he knew at the time, acted reasonably, with the facts on the ground, in a rapidly evolving, very quickly moving situation. It seemed like the gallery on some portions of the trial might have had anywhere from 3 to 5 seats open for the public. It seems like there is a culture, there's some type of culture at the Travis County Courthouse that it's hard for me to put a finger on. He found himself in a very sticky situation where he could have been shot